Review. Book 1 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a debut author and the author of the book Apollo Web. No other than Mr. Christopher Choate. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Christopher. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, Daniel. And first, sir, thank you very much for having me. I tell you, this is quite an honor to be with you. So thank you very much. Um, Background: I'm a retired Air Force officer. I've since then been I worked for the government for a number of years as a civilian. If I was going to give some bullets, I would basically say I've been married. Very lucky man. I've been married for 42 years. Father of two grown boys, one daughter-in-law. I would call myself a basically a Christian. I'm a very avid runner, and I'm now trying to become an author.
Mr. Christopher Choate. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. What sparked the fusion of Greek mythology and artificial intelligence in Apollo Web? Was it a character, philosophical question, or what if scenario?
It's great. That's a great question. The artificial intelligence. My background is originally computer science. I did some strategic planning with the Air Force and the Pentagon. So I think artificial intelligence is obviously a very big issue. Um, I don't know if your readers are familiar with Schumpner's waves, but obviously artificial intelligence is going to be a big one in the sixth wave, which I think we're in right now from Schumpner's wave, which is definitely worth researching if your audience has never heard of Schumpner. But the Greek mythology is a really good one too. I grew up watching Star Trek, and there is a article. There's a one of the things about Apollo, which is what brought in Apollo wept. Initially had Zeus, and that was kind of a play off of Atlas Shrugged. But as I was writing the book, Apollo became a pretty obvious, and that's how it became Apollo wept.
Interesting indeed, Mr. Christopher. And Apollo Web implies divine sorrow. Is Apollo grief literal, metaphorical, or both? What does a weeping god represent in the world of advanced AI?
A little of all the above. Not to jink out of your question, but I'll give you how it came about. There is an artificial intelligence who's basically the human memories of the captain of the ship's great grandfather. And long story there that we don't have time to go into. But so he has this artificial intelligence, which is based off of human intellect and experiences from the late 20th century. And they watch a Star Trek episode, which has Apollo in it. And he asks the question, what do you think Apollo would think of us today in the year 2104? And his great grandfather looks at him and goes, well, I don't know what he'd say, but I think he would weep. So he's basically Apollo's not happy with where Western civilization has went. That's kind of the basis of the thesis, if you will.
Beyond tears, how does grief manifest in non human entities like AI or digital gods in your story?
I have it's a space opera, which gives you a lot of literary. You don't have to go too deep into the science fiction, if you will. I do some try to make it plausible, but the artificial intelligence, he has his memories up to about 2016, and I do that to keep current political issues out of it. I try not to get too much in the current political environment, but he has all that knowledge from a period that we're trying in my book we're trying to erase. We're very embarrassed of our history, and we're trying to erase that. And he's giving them reasons, where we were headed, what we were doing right, and before we kind of went off the track, if you will. So he has the memory and the intellect of that time, and I try to write it in where he evolves. And kind of one of the twists towards the end of the story is he evolves to a point where he becomes central to the end of the story, which probably a cliffhanger. I'll probably leave that right there, I guess.
No spoilers, people. No spoilers.
I got close. I got close there, but
Almost there, but
almost.
not
Yes, sir.
quite. So,
Yes, sir.
how does an ancient god of reason, prophecy, and plague adapt to a digital existence? What aspects of this divine nature become strength or liabilities?
Um, he's a kind of a source of reason initially to the crew, to his great grandson and the crew. There is a social justice officer on board the ship that is there heading out to the Voyager probe, and I modeled him off of the old Soviet Union political officers. He's a zealot about social justice, and he's taken it too far. The slope, if you will, kind of went to the point where we just went into the word of absurdity. And again, the beautiful thing about political satire is, you can go overboard, and I definitely do. So into the world of absurdity almost, if you kept on a slope that you didn't correct from. He brings them back to basically some of the reality and makes them realize some of the things they're doing are just don't make sense, if you will. And so he doesn't become divine, if you will. He does towards the end. He evolves to a point where I bring some religious spirituality, excuse me if I can say that word right, into the story. So there is a Christian message in the story. It's definitely not a Christian book. Please, I hope nobody buys this thinking they're going to get a Christian book. It's not. It's not that. But it does have a Christian kind of message in it that comes in towards the end as Pop, as I call him, the great grandfather, the artificial intelligence evolves as the story goes.
Mr. Chris is the primary antagonist driven by malice, fear, corrupted programming, or twisted sense of purpose. What makes them compelling?
He is he's very adamant what he's doing is right. So I would say it's kind of a twisted sense of what is right, but he is a zealot in a world that is convinced. Um, Let me back up just real quick on this. One of the central themes of the book is, I would say, is what if what we are is more important than who we are? And for those who know Martin Luther King's beautiful "I Have a Dream" speech, that's pretty much right from it. One of the greatest speeches of the 20th century. Um, well, my protagonist is well, he's a party man, but the antagonist, he sees that as that is the we what you are is all that matters. We have lost touch with a lot of things, and what you are is much more important than who you are. And that's kind of what my protagonist. That's pretty much the world he is. He of course he doesn't fight it at first, but as it goes on, with help through the AI system, he ends up basically going against that system.
Is grief portrayed as a flaw, a catalyst for growth, or a fundamental requirement for true sentence or
Uh,
sentient, sorry, a human or AI?
uh, Boy, that's a good one. Yeah, boy,
Thank you.
you're earning your pay here, by the way. Yeah. It starts again. It starts out as he's in a world of social justice, and he's fully on board with it. And the reason they're leaving the solar system is because are you familiar with the Voyager probe at all? The Voyager
Mm,
1 and 2.
yes, sir.
Okay, your audience may or may not, and there's a little twist in the story there, but they find as we're erasing records from the what I call the faux era, which is basically the civil rights era on. We decide, in this world, we're a little twisted, and as we were moving to where, you know, um, who you are was more important than what you are. And of course, our nation started out with what you were was all that mattered, but we were moving away from that. And um, as they're erasing that part of the history, and they find the Voyager probes and they find the plaque, the golden plaque, which shows that there is a male and a female. And that is denial because that is insulted to other people who view other genders, and of course doesn't even mention sexual orientations and color skin, all these what you are questions. So they're moving out to erase that and replace it with a socially acceptable plaque, and that's kind of what they're going for. And the protagonist is Penn Lincoln. Duke is his call sign. He's agnostic on the mission, but he's on the task, if you will. He's a party player. He's on board, but he's really after the. He's a former fighter pilot, and he is really after the mission itself, the challenge, and that's what he's after. But he's part of the system. But as he goes on, he keeps getting confronted with the social justice officer with some of the absurdities that have developed in this world. And then, with help from this AI system, who was his great grandfather, that's how the story pretty much evolves.
Very well said, Mr. Christopher. Very well said. Beautifully, beautifully articulated. How does creating a digital gods mirror humanity's ancient mythic novel?
Um, the AI, again, the Greek mythology part is if anyone reads the book who is a very well knowledgeable in Greek mythology, he'll find a lot of flaws. I kind of use the pop culture of Greek mythology, if you will. I do bring up a couple examples that are pretty are very entertaining and humorous, but and as I understand it too, the Greeks, you look at Apollo. I don't think the Greeks knew what the guy did. He was logic, the chariot of the sun. He seemed to be do quite a things. But anyway, I bring that in just for the historical of the origin of the Western civilization, which I a big defender of Western civilization. I think what we have created is, use Lincoln's term, the last best hope for mankind. Now, we're not perfect. Our history is far from perfect. But, I say we have evolved, we're doing, and I'm really, when I wrote the book, again, kind of worried about where we were headed. And again, with our history, and again, I will defend Western civilization to the end, because I think starting with the Greeks and moving on, not perfect. I ain't gonna say we're perfect, but, I think it is our humanity's best chance for going forward. And that's kind of why I brought in the Greek history of it for that origin of Western civilization.
Mr. Chris, what resources, energy, or societal structures are needed to sustain a digital deity?
Digital, boy, boy, you got some good questions. you know, uh, I don't know. I don't know that anyone knows that, because we really, you can read AI all the way from the Terminator movies to, more serious looks. We just don't know. And the AI in my book is smart, super intelligent, but it's not aware. The first aware one is this Pop, and again, I know we don't have time to go in how Pop evolves and how he becomes about, but I have to go into that book quite a bit to explain that. But he is the first AI based off of human intellect, and he evolves as he goes forward. The AI of the day is very smart, very intelligent, super capable, as we're already seeing. It's amazing what AI is already doing, but it's not aware. Pop is aware, my AI. And again, I think to answer your question, I don't know that we really know, and that's kind of scary. And I think even the smartest man. I apologize. I don't remember who it was, but one guy I remember him reading, because he hopes it happens sooner rather than later, because the longer it goes, the more connected we are, and the worse things will be if it decides we're more of a pain than what it's worth dealing with.
Definitely. Mr. Christopher, as a debut author, what are your short term and long term goals?
Oh, I tell my again, married 42 years. Had been a wonderful guy, and I'm pretty much moving into the retirement part of my life. So trying to find a cruise ship anytime I can that my checkbook will allow me. That's one of my goals. Avid runner. I run much as I can. That's so I try to do that. Try to see our family, and I really, when I wrote Apollo Wept, I that was going to be it. That was one book I put every 62 or 63 years of my knowledge into it. But the editor I'm working with at Defiance Press, they told me they know that's not a good approach. So they said start looking at other books. So next book that's in the work is one about the Tuskegee Airmen. It's an alternate history, but it's going to deal with the Tuskegee Airmen from World War II.
Interesting, Mr. Chris, and good luck to your goals and looking forward for more success and
Well, thank you, sir.
more and more novels to come.
Thank you,
What would
sir.
be your what would be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be an author like you?
Mm. Well, I'm just starting, but I can tell you the things that I really got from this was one is experience. I've been around 63 years, so it really helps to have a lot of experiences to pull from. And the other one would just be read. You cannot read enough. I don't care what it is. Fiction, history, read it all. The more you read, the better you are. And there's a lot. I'm learning this. There's a lot of people out there that help you learn to write. And Just a real quick plug for like Mark Twain, Ernest Hemingway, everybody before them. How they did this without a word processor, I do not know. They had to be brilliant. I do not know how, even with a typewriter, how you write a novel with just without a word processor. I'm not smart enough. So the earlier writers before the word processor, they were all those men and women were just totally extraordinary. So, but to answer your question, would be those three things. Basically, you build off your experiences, read everything you can, and seek help on learning to write because there's a lot of smart people out there that can help you learn to write.
Definitely. And thank you for your advice, Mr. Chris. And can you share us the books that influence your journey?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, let's see here. Right Stuff, probably my favorite book. The Right Stuff. Beautiful book. I came from flying F-15s and F-4s, and while that moves to the astronauts, it's a beautiful book explaining the early astronauts, the Mercury astronauts, and as well as the test pilots before that. But Tom Wolfe was just a wonderful writer. Atlas Shrugged, which have you read Atlas Shrugged?
No, not yet.
It's long. it's I first read it. I remember just starting that book and go, I have seen this in my life so many times. But I will say she was really long winded. She could have cut about several hundred pages out of that book, but it was very enlightening for Atlas Shrugged. And then I read the classics when I first started writing, like Moby Dick. These books I had no real knowledge or much of, but I read those. And obviously, for my future, the ones I read, 1984 is a classic. You can't write about a dystopian future without reading 1984. So those are the big ones. And then just a couple of Air Force books that I read that my format follows some of those about the history of the Air Force, the wild. The Wild Blue, I believe is the name of it, the Wild Yonder. I'm sorry, I can't remember. It's on my shelf back there, uh, but it was a kind of it was a very well told story over a period of years. So I kind of used a lot of that as I went with writing Apollo Wept.
Thank you, Mr. Chris, for your recommended books. What real world AI research, philosophical texts, or mythic sources most deeply inform the book itself?
Um, Yeah, no, I didn't really research AI too much for the book. I had some basic knowledge of it, and I did not use it to write the book. I've played around with it since then, and it is quite amazing, like for biographies. But I did not use it for the book at all. Um, the Going back to the science fiction part, Hal was obviously huge. As a matter of fact, I use Hal in a kind of an off. I try to bring in 20th century. Bits and pieces of the 20th century. And Hal is mentioned not as a computer, but he's in the book or the word Hal. I
Mhm.
don't know if you've seen 2001. That's probably for science fiction, the epitome of AI. Where you have him, and then if you read the books are wonderful. Not beyond the movie, but the books are wonderful about how we tell him to lie and how he has trouble dealing with it and stuff like that. So Hal was big on the AI, but again, the I made the pop. I mirrored him on my dad, if you will. My father. He passed away while I was writing it, but he was what we call old school, and he didn't tolerate incompetence very well. He had a low tolerance for what he considered was not things that weren't very smart. So Pop kind of passed that along to these guys because he thinks the people in the 22nd century here he doesn't understand why they do a lot of things, and he obviously informs them of that. So that was kind of what I used, which is more again the space opera side. I don't really go deeply into the AI embedding, if you will, for or some of the actual doing it. That's probably beyond what I'm capable of writing on. Exactly how AI are working and evolving.
Yes, indeed. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, Mr. Christopher, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Chris, if Apollo could speak directly to our world today, seeing our AI advancements and societal struggles, what single lament or warning might he utter?
I, I would go back to the again the theme. It's who we are is more important than what we are, and I think our nation was moving that direction, and we seem to for whatever reason, I don't know why we I kind of have some theories, but won't give them here. But we went away from that, and that's a dangerous slope to go down because again, the Martin Luther King "I Have a Dream" speech, who you are, he's a dreamer. Who you are is more important than the color of skin. And I will throw out sexual orientation, gender, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's who you are inside. And we really need to focus on that as a society. I mean, because we're very divided. I know Canada is not so much as we are here in America, but very divided. But we need to focus on what's really important in our nation, and we just really got to keep moving and keep working together. We all have different opinions. We all have think this or that's more important. Yeah, and compromise. At least our founding fathers were brilliant, and they gave us a government that was built on compromise and the separation of powers, and that's really important to remember. And that's, I think, true of any democracy and the Western civilization in general. Is again trying to keep evolving, moving forward, making our world a better place.
Mr. Christopher Shaw, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world through Apollo Web. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your debut novel?
Well, thank you, sir. And Daniel, sir, it's very impressive what you have here. You've done quite an operation here. Very, very impressive. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, sir. So, where do people buy your book?
They will be coming out through Defiance Press, but they will be on Amazon and there are about 50 distributors. It should be out hopefully here around sometime in the fall. It should be ready to go. It'll be a 3-part series.
Okay, and you are most welcome to come back and let's talk about this part 2 and part 3, Mr. Chris.
Okay, that would be quite an honor, sir. It'd be very much an honor.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Christopher Choate because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Chris, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Again, quite an honor to speak with you. Thanks so much.
More to come, people. See you soon.